All right, let's get right into it. If you're working in any kind of regulated space, you know that compliance isn't just a suggestion, it's pretty much the air you breathe. And right at the core of all of that is access control. We're going to talk about how to build a system that isn't just about ticking a box, but about creating a real, bulletproof defense for your compliance. And let's be crystal clear right from the jump. This quote really says it all. We are not talking about a nice-to-have or some kind of best practice. In the world of GxP, the FDA and ISO standards, separating who can do what is an absolute non-negotiable requirement. It's the law of the land.
So you gotta wonder, why does so many systems get this so wrong? Well, they often fall into this trap on the left. You're either an admin with the keys to the entire kingdom, or you're everyone else. This all-or-nothing approach is a huge, glaring compliance risk. The model that works, the one inspectors actually expect to see, is built on specific, purpose-built roles that actually reflect how people work in the real world.
Okay, so how do we actually build that compliant model? It all starts by defining roles that map directly to how a real quality organization is structured. So let's dive in and break down the 5 essential roles you need to create a system that's truly robust and compliant.
First up, the admin. Think of this person as the system's owner or its caretaker. In your company, this could be your IT administrator or maybe your quality director, whoever's ultimately on the hook for keeping the quality system itself running smoothly.
Now, what's really important here is to understand the admin's power and its limits. Yeah, they can manage users, they can configure the system, the whole shebang. But, and this is probably the most critical part, this role should never be used for day-to-day quality work. The moment an admin account is used to edit a test case, for example, your whole separation of duties just goes right out the window.
Okay, let's move on to the next role and see how this all fits together. The QA manager. This person isn't the system owner, they are the process owner. You can think of them as the gatekeepers of quality, the ones who direct the workflow and have the final say on approving work.
So the QA manager has a lot of power. They can create records, they can edit them, and most importantly, they can improve them. They review their team's work and give that final sign-off. But notice what they can't do. They have zero access to system administration. They can't create new users or tweak system settings. That right there is a clean, defensible line between 2 different responsibilities.
Next up, we have the engine of the quality system, the QA engineer. This role is for all the people on the front lines, the ones who are doing the essential, day-to-day work of creating and documenting all of your quality records. They're the doers.
And this brings us to the single most important rule in GxP compliance. It's so fundamental. A QA engineer can create things, they can edit them, but they absolutely positively cannot approve their own work. The system itself must enforce this. The person who writes the document cannot be the person who signs off on it. This principle is the very bedrock of data you can actually trust.
Now, what about those people who need to see everything but shouldn't be able to touch anything? Well, that's exactly where the auditor role comes in. It's designed specifically for your internal compliance teams, external auditors, or even regulatory inspectors.
The key here is that this role is strictly view-only. They can see every record, every signature, every single entry in the audit trail, but they cannot change a single character. And it's important to know this is different from just sending out an anonymous temporary link. An auditor with this role has their own user account, which means all their activity is logged. You get full accountability.
Finally, there's a more specialized but totally vital role, the reviewer. This isn't for a member of the QA team. Instead, think of a subject matter expert, someone from regulatory affairs, maybe a clinical specialist, or an engineer from a different department who needs to provide a critical sign-off.
And the function for this role is surgically precise. A reviewer can see a record and they can approve it. That is it. They can't touch the content. This is so important because it ensures their approval is a truly independent assessment of the work exactly as it was submitted. It preserves the integrity of that review process.
So, let's put it all together now. This permission matrix is basically the entire system in one snapshot. You can clearly see the 5 roles across the top and the 4 key permissions on the side. And, you know, the no's here are just as important as the yeses. This is your map, your visual proof that you've properly implemented separation of duties.
Okay, so we've defined all the roles. But, you know, a definition on paper is useless unless it's strictly enforced by the system. So let's take a quick peek under the hood and see how a modern system makes sure these rules are followed every single time, without fail.
Look, this isn't about just hiding a button in the user interface. Not at all.
Every single action you take, every click, every save, sends a request to the server's API. And before any data gets touched, the system checks the user's role and verifies if they have the right permission. If they don't, it's a hard stop. Access is completely denied. It's like a technical gate that simply cannot be bypassed.
All right, now for the big payoff. Why do we go through all this trouble? It's simple. Because the regulators demand it. Let's connect these system features directly to the specific rules they're designed to meet.
Take the FDA's 21 CFR Part 11. It explicitly requires limiting system access to authorized individuals. That's not just a vague idea. A system that performs these authority checks at the API level is the direct, tangible way you meet that exact rule.
And it's the exact same story over in Europe. EU Annex 11 talks about needing logical controls to restrict what authorized people can do inside the system. Well, role-based access control, or RBAC, isn't just a feature, it is the logical control that the regulation is talking about.
And this right here is the ultimate proof. A compliant audit trail has to do more than just list what happened. By logging the user's specific role with every single entry, it provides undeniable proof of accountability. An auditor can see not just what happened, but that it was done by someone with the proper authority to do it. So we've covered the why and the how. Let's wrap this up with some practical, actionable advice you can use as a blueprint when you're implementing or just evaluating your own system. Here are the key things to remember. First, always start with the principle of least privilege. Give users the absolute minimum access they need to do their job, nothing more. Second, document everything and review those roles regularly. Third, when you're validating your system, actively try to break the rules to prove they actually work. And finally, and this is a big one, if you have admin rights, get a second non-admin account for all your daily tasks.
And that really brings us to the final question you should ask yourself. When an auditor comes knocking, you need to be confident. So take a hard look at your access controls and ask, is this a real safety net built on clear, enforced roles? Or is it just a checkbox you ticked, one that's just waiting for its first serious challenge? The answer to that question makes all the difference in the world.